In the history of the world, there's a 6,000 year limit to things. We have a tradition, comes from our sages. It's not located in the Torah itself, but we have a tradition that the world history will only happen for 6,000 years from Adam till the end of history. We are now in year 5774. And if you have a 6,000 max, yeah, so if you do the math, what's it come up to? How many years left? 226? 226. When you subtract 5774 from 6,000, you get to 226. There are 226 years left in history. 226 years in history has to be broken down into sabbatical years. Everything in Judaism is counted based on sevens, 6 days a week, then Shabbos, 7, right? You count 6 years, then there's a sabbatical year, the 7th. Count 7 of those, and then you get the Jubilee year, the 50th year. Everything's sevens. Everything's sevens. Seven's like the nature of things, the lunar cycle, the creative cycle in a woman. Everything's sevens, and it's the colors of the rainbow 7, the scale, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. Okay, everything's sevens in the world. Okay, so 226 years are left. Now, what we've got to do is divide 226 by the number 7, okay? So if we divide the number 226 by 7, what do we get? Who can do that math? How many times does 7 go into 226? Haven't we got a calculator? Because I'm not exactly the math expert.
32.
No? What is it?
32. 32 point something.
32 point something. So let's just call it, you write it above, I don't even remember this.
32. Yeah.
Let's just call it here, 32, okay? So how many more sabbatical years are there until we hit 6,000 to get to that 7,000 years of Shabbos? It's going to be really amazing. We're going to have 1,000 years of Shabbos. So how many sabbatical years do we have left before we get to 6,000? And the answer is 32. 32 sabbatical years left. What is so important about sabbatical years? What's going on with sabbatical years? So the answer is that sabbatical years are mentioned in the Talmud. The Talmud is our oral tradition. And in the tractate called Sanhedrin, in the last chapter of Sanhedrin, there are a lot of stories having to do with like bigger picture, like next world, the history of time, like the end of days and stuff like that. There's a lot written there. And it specifically mentions that the Messianic era will take place in the, first of all, it's going to be a long period of time, but it's going to take place in the end of a sabbatical year, which would be Rosh Hashanah, after the 7th year. And the words in Hebrew, for those who know Hebrew, it says Motzei Shvi. Motzei, you guys heard the term Motzei Shabbat? What's that mean? After Shabbat. Saturday night is called, in Israel, Saturday night is called Motzei Shabbat, after Shabbat. So Motzei Shabbat, it says Motzei Shvi. After Shvi, it says, after the 7th year, it says Ben David Ba. After the 7th year, the son of David comes. After the 7th year, the son of David comes. That's what it means. Motzi Shvi Ben David Ba. the son of David comes. What's the son of David? What does that mean? So the answer is Mashiach. Why the son of David? Well, it was determined that the tribe of Judah, would be the kingship tribe. That's the tribe that's always the monarchy of Israel. It's always got to be the tribe of Judah. And David's in the tribe of Judah. And we call, ever since David passed away, we call the Mashiach ben David. Mashiach ben David, the son, Mashiach, the son of David. So it says in our Talmud, at the end of the 7th year, the son of David comes. Okay, great. There's been a lot of 7 years. There's been a lot of 7th years for the last couple thousand years. And a lot of these things. Also, don't forget, Mashiach can come at any point. So there's 2 options. See, in the Tanakh, the prophet says that Mashiach will come. It says, Be'ito achishena. Be'ito means at its appointed time. Okay, that's this time. And then it says achishena. I need a good English word. I'll bring it quicker. Achishena means I'll hurry it, speed it up. Expedite it. Okay? So, which tells us there's 2 ways, our commentaries share, that there's 2 ways King David comes. Sorry, not King David. 2 ways the Mashiach comes, the Messiah comes. Either it comes at an appointed time, which the Talmud tells us. It doesn't tell us which 7th year, but it tells us it's going to be after the 7th year. Or it will come, achishena means that I'm just going to send him to bail you out of some situation. Meaning if the Jewish people get to some situation where we are in so much trouble and the Gentiles have misused their free will so intensely that we have been pressed beyond, I guess, existence, that's when Mashiach comes, because God promised we're an eternal nation. So if we get pressed that bad, it could be the achishena situation, the achishena coming of King David's generation, meaning Mashiach, would be because we were pressed badly and God sent it early. So you got one of the 2. Either you have achishena, which is, let's call it the bailout, like a federal bailout. Either we get bailed out, okay, call it like that. Either we get bailed out, or it's what's called the appointed time. So there's bailout, and then there's the appointed time. Okay, one of these 2, the bailout or the appointed time. Now, there could be a bailout, and it could come right this second. The bailout could come right this second. Why would it come right this second? I have no idea. But we're supposed to believe, the Rambam says that we're supposed to believe, every Jew must believe, that it could be any moment. Any moment. So somehow we have to hold on to this any moment idea, that God could at any moment bring Mashiach, and then it really could be any moment. And we also believe that there will be an appointed time in case that bailout doesn't come. The Talmud goes on. It doesn't just say the 7th year. But let's just do the math real quick. We got 32 of these left. Next year is one of those. Okay, next year is Tafshin Ayin Hey. So next year is 5775. I'll just show you what that looks like. 5775 equals Taf Shin, right? That's 4 plus 300. 400 plus 300 is 700. Taf Shin Ayin, okay, 70, and then Hey. Okay, millennia we never put. Taf Shin Ayin Hey stands for 775, and you got to be a dunce not to know what millennia it is. So we know it happens to be the 5th millennia the 6th millennia. Right now we're in the 6th millennia, okay, from Adam. Okay, so what does that spell? Let me just put it here. Tashua. Tashua. What does that mean? Tashua. It means salvation. Okay, Tashua means salvation. That's where Joshua comes from. Yeah, Joshua means salvation. Okay, Yoshua or Tashua. Tashua means the word salvation. So next year is the word that means salvation. Okay. By the way, I'm going to say a lot that has to do with next year, and it may freak you guys out royally the rest of this class. I want you to know that I could easily be wrong, and I'd be totally cool with being wrong. So many people have been wrong in the past. As I said before, you could throw it all out and say I'm wrong. Why? Because there's going to be another 31 of these after next year. There's another 31. So it's not necessarily this coming year. There's another 31 left. Clear? It's going to be one of them.
Next year starting Rosh Hashanah?
Yeah. This year starting Rosh Hashanah is the sabbatical year, and then it's after. So it's after next Rosh Hashanah. That would be it. Okay? So, but a couple of things to note of why it's more likely now than later. First of all, it's more likely now than later because if you only have till 6,000 years, and we have to have a temple area, there's a third temple era. So we have to have an era. Era needs time. So it's got to be one of the earlier ones than the later ones. Meaning, even if the Messiah came today, the first thing I'd say to him is, you're late. I mean, think of it, both the first temple and the second temple are longer than the years we have left. They were like 450-year eras. We only have this left to 6,000. What kind of era is that? That's hardly an era in human history. So if Mashiach came now, I'd be like, hello, like, where have you been? So it's got to be earlier than later. And if Mashiach wants to come at year 5,559, I'm not even going to talk to him. I'm like, shkoyach. We're going to build the temple in a year. You're going to use what kind of crane can do that? So anyway, so it's more likely it's sooner than later because it has to usher in this whole amazing era called the Messianic era, marked by three major things: ingathering the exile, okay, already happened. Rebuilding in Jerusalem, okay, we already own the property. All we need is, as I said, a crane. And the third thing is world peace. We're not doing so hot there, okay? No, but that's the whole point of the era. Like the lion lays down with the lamb. Normally the lion's eating the lamb, but he lays down. People take their swords and beat plowshares. They actually cut they cut wheat with swords that were otherwise for killing people. They're cutting the wheat with those swords to feed people. Right? The president of the United States calling tankers from Norway to pick up wheat to bring it down the Mississippi to feed people in Africa. This world's filled with bounty. Our problem in this world is that we don't use the bounty appropriately. We don't appropriate the bounty in the way that makes sure everyone's well. There's so much amazing bounty in this world. God created much more than we could ever even use, but the problem is we got the few using it and the many missing it. And all it takes is a good leader. I myself, I'll handle it. Yeah, I'm not Mashiach. Okay, I am from the line. Yeah, I am from the line. But I don't care if it's me. I don't care if it's you. But someone who can wake people up to the fact that you get more by giving, not by taking. And that's the whole point. And we can get a leader like that. We can find someone who can do that. I mean, Gandhi stopped Muslims and Hindus from killing each other on a whole continent of war for at least a couple hours. And he did that just by fasting. Imagine if he actually had something to say. Yeah. So, I mean, he did have something to say. Stop killing each other. But imagine if he really had content, like our kind of content that you get over here. That'd have been power, yeah? Power. It would have stopped war all over the world. Gandhi handled India, but if he actually had some content, wow. So, again, more likely to be here than there, more likely to be here than there. But there's another thing, is that, as I said before, the Talmud goes on and describes more about it. It wants to hint. It wants to get us ready. The Talmud's warning us about those years to make sure we get to Israel before they close Ben Gurion Airport. Okay? Now, all these years I've been teaching this class, a lot of years, okay, a lot of years. And even before the previous sabbatical year, which I did not think it would be, okay? I believed it's going to be this coming one. So I've been teaching this a lot of years, but people would say to me, okay, so when it comes, I'll fly to Israel. And I'm like, who says the airspace is going to be available? Who says you just get to book a ticket and come? Who says? So I used to always say that, not knowing what I'm talking about, And this is the first time I'm ever teaching the class after 48 hours of no planes flying, except for El Al, of course. But isn't it wild? Like, this is the time. So this is a great time to be teaching this class, okay? Now, anyway, where were we? So what does the Talmud say? So guess what? The Talmud speaks through rain. It speaks through rain. Why? Because we have a tradition that God does not hide in weather. Weather is one of God's open-faced relationships with humanity. Otherwise, God's usually hidden. He's hidden in our relationships and hidden in our finances and hidden all kinds of ways that we go through our daily lives. But when it comes to weather, God doesn't hide. And so the Talmud actually gives us the weather patterns of the last 7 years so we can actually know to get to Israel, not at the last minute when it's going to be really iffy. I mean, the best you can do is you can maybe rent a jet ski from Cyprus and say, like, I'm not going to be back. And just cruising across the Mediterranean going, I probably should have thought of gas. Can you get to Israel from Cyprus on one tank of gas? Anyway, of course, there you are floating like a week later, on your jet ski, just hoping there's no storms. Anyway, the first year, says the Talmud, will be a drought year. So if you go back in the years, 7 years ago, or 6 years ago, to Tafshin, someone help me here, we're in Tafshin 5774. So I'll show you the years now. Just someone bring me back 6 years, that would be 68? Oh, 1968, I was born in 68. Okay, so 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, and then 75, and then it's time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So get rid of that one. Okay, I'm not good at math. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, good. Now, 69, it says, will be a drought. Next year is an increase in drought. Okay, the next year is a very intense, so we'll put 2 of these, increase in drought. Okay, so in other words, the first year will be a drought year, second year will be an intense drought year, and the third year is going to be like a really intense drought year.
In Israel or the world?
Israel, just in Israel. Then in 5772, there will be good rains, not regular rains, but good rains. Okay? That 73 says the Talmud, there will be amazing rains. And boy, were there amazing. The rains were so good that a week before Passover, I was skiing powder snow. This is summer. I mean, there's right now 0 snow up on the Mount Hermon. But certainly Passover, there's no skiing on Passover. That year, they were open all Passover. I think the first time since I'm here in 23 years that it was ever open on Passover. It's never open then. We had such amazing rains that I was powder skiing in like shorts and a t-shirt, and tzitzis, of course. It's funny, there were women in like dresses and stuff, just like, like religious women like racing down the mountain. So amazing rains. And then the next year is our year, is going to be rumors. This is the Talmud again. Rumors of war. Not any war, but big war.
That's this one?
That's this year. Rumors of big war, which basically means the world's like kind of freaking out about war and stuff like that. Okay? 5775, the Talmud goes on. You know what? This is going to help. Let me just fix this real quick. Okay, we'll just put a... Don't you write it on top anyway?
Yeah. How do you write it?
It's the first time I've drawn that since the day they taught it to me in school. I think I was in elementary school and I missed the next day. So I didn't even know why we drew it. Okay? And the last is that's rumors of war. And then the last year, which is next year, is the sabbatical year, the 7th year, is the war. That's the war. And then after Rosh Hashanah, right after Rosh Hashanah, it says the son of David, okay? Ben David.
Does it have to be right after, or could it be after until the next 7 years?
It says Motzei Shvi. Motzei Shvi sounds, it would have said the 8th year or the first year of the new cycle. The fact that it says Motzei Shvi lends us to really after Rosh Hashanah, not later, okay? Otherwise, the Talmud wouldn't have said Motzei Shvi. It would have said the next year, either call it the 8th, but it does mention the 8th, by the way. It says Ben David Ba is, that's called Motzei Shvi. Okay, that's Motzei Shvi. And then the 76, 5776, it says, will be for Refuah.
77.
No, 76. This is, Motzei Shvi is 76. So that will be Le Refuah, which means healing. That's a healing year after the wars. A healing year. Because think, these wars are intense wars. So there's like, it's not just like Mashiach comes and everyone's like, dancing around. It's like Mashiach comes, it's awesome, it's great, except the world's healing from the massive war that happened. Okay? Healing. You say it it could be nuclear for all we know. You say it every year in the Passover story. Speaking of redemption, in the Passover story, you take your pinky, you dip it in the wine, you put it on your plate, and you say the word palm tree-shaped pillars of smoke. You say it every year, Passover. When is Passover? What's Passover? Redemption, Mashiach, yeah. And that's what the whole holiday is about. So you'll recognize redemption in the end of days. And you dip your pinky in the wine, you touch it to your plate, and you say, palm tree-shaped pillars of smoke, right? Palm tree-shaped pillars of smoke. It's called Timros Ashan. Timrot means tamar, is a tamar tree. It's palm tree-shaped pillars of smoke. Timrot Ashan, Ashan smoke, okay?
Do you know where the Gemara says this?
It says what? Yeah, I told you, it was the last chapter of Sanhedrin.
Last chapter.
Sanhedrin. Okay? Now, next, in Sanhedrin, if you look out your window, where the Al-Aqsa Mosque, that's where the Sanhedrin sat. That's the high court's called Sanhedrin. This is all coming from the tractate called Sanhedrin, which was right out the window. Okay? Now.
Last chapter of the whole tractate, right?
Yeah. Now, next, okay? A couple of things. First of all, the Rambam says that the seventh year, for there to be a true sabbatical year, you have to have a majority of Jews in the land of Israel. Well, I'm sorry to say that for the last 2,500 years, we haven't had that. Second Temple never got a majority. People were too busy with their kosher restaurants in their, in Queens 2,500 years ago. Okay, they didn't quite come back like, some of us came back. We built the Second Temple. Not everybody. The Rambam says that for there to be a true seventh year, a true sabbatical year, you need to have a majority of Jews in the land. Well, this coming year will be the first time, according to the Israeli census, that we will have a majority of Jews in the land of Israel for 2,500 years. Which means that, remember we said that it could have been any of the seventh years for all of history? Well, not necessarily. It could be that only now it could be considered a seventh year because only now we have hit the majority of Jews. And by the way, they're coming in droves from France just in the last few months. And now that France is going crazy and rioting, Jews are just like literally packing their bags and coming over here like boom, boom, boom. What?
How is that possible according to population? Population in America alone just overrides population here in Israel. So if
You're saying population of Jews. We have more Jews in Israel than they have Jews in America. Here, there are more Jews than America. When you add other countries, then it comes up about equal. When you add France, you add all the other countries, Russia, and places where Jews still are, it comes about equal. And according to the Israeli census, we passed them this year. Isn't that interesting that we passed them in the year right before it? Right before all of this is when we passed. Now, again, this is the Israeli census. And what do they know about who a Jew is? And anyway, we don't ask Israelis who a Jew is. We ask the rabbis who are Jews. So who knows? Because every Catholic lady who has, who was in some convent hidden from the Nazis, who happened to be a Jew and had kids, is a Jew. and that means all her kids are Jews, and Catholics can have a lot of kids. Okay, so she could have had 7 kids, 6 girls and a boy, and all those girls go and marry others and have a bunch of Catholic kids who are all Jews. Okay, so that's a lot of Jews. But the question is, do we count them? And that's a whole discussion we're not going to talk about, because do you guys count Catholics as Jews? No. Do rabbis count Catholics as Jews? No. What if they have the lineage? We still dip them in a mikveh. Okay? Sorry. You've lost your tradition. You got to get a dip. Yeah. So we just pop them in that mikveh, pull them out. Yeah. But the real question isn't whether we hold their Jewish. It's not a question of whether rabbis hold their Jewish. The question is, does God hold their Jewish? And so, but if God says that a Jew who's actually at this point has disappeared amongst the nations, even though they're really Jewish, but has disappeared amongst the nations, or they're no longer writing Jew when they send around those censuses in America and you check off if you're a Jew or not. If people are no longer checking that off, is it really a Jew? Yes, it's a Jew. But I mean, when you've surgically reinstalled your foreskin based on your behavior, are you really part of our nation at that point? And the answer is yes and no. And so it is a question. I leave it open to question that. But let me just keep moving because of just time crunch here. But let's talk a little more about it. So we need a majority of Jews, and according to the census, we seem to be there. So it could be any of the sabbatical years of the next 32 years, and that number really should be bigger because that's really what we got left. Now, imagine that you have a 1 in 32 chances of winning the lottery. Would you buy a ticket?
Yeah.
1 in 32 chances. Yeah?
30 tickets.
How many tickets would you buy? How many tickets? A lot? Would you spend a lot of money on those tickets? Yeah, you'd invest a lot because it's a very high chance. So, for sure, just knowing what the Talmud says about the sabbatical years and Ben David coming, and also that there's going to be big wars and it's not going to be so simple to get here, which we now know. Now we know that. It's not going to be so simple to get here for the time. Some of you may be asking, who wants to be here? Who wants to be here, first of all, for the wars? And secondly, who says you can't come later or something? So the answer is there's no promises outside the land of Israel. There's just no promises. Right now, think about it. What makes you safe to be in any country as a Jew today? Answer? What? The answer is that there's Israel, probably most likely. I mean, the answer is because there's God, but the other answer is because there's Israel. You guys think, you think Netanyahu's job is protecting Israel? Netanyahu is protecting Jews all over the planet right now. Because people know if you mess with the Jews, you can mess with one Jew, you can mess up a cemetery, you can mess with a synagogue. You mess with the Jews in any country, the IDF's going to be there. Okay, they'll come in and they'll take care of business. That's the way it is. But when the whole world turns on us, yeah, when it goes bigger, I wouldn't want to walk around even New York City, not even the Lower East Side, where Jews basically founded the whole place. Not even the Upper West Side where the Jews live now. I wouldn't want to walk around anywhere outside the land of Israel if Israel's in trouble. Okay, if Israel's going through stuff. Another thing is that it says that the war will be quiet, meaning we get to be quiet, we get to watch it. We get to actually watch it, and rather it's a clash of civilizations, most likely Yishmael versus Esav. It's a clash of Western versus Eastern, meaning Arab nations. It's going to be more about the church versus Islam. It's going to be this like, and we, the Jews, are going to be this like still small voice. It's all going to happen over Israel. And haven't you guys been watching the news? Have you seen all these comments on Facebook of like it lists all the different countries of where people have been killed and all the humanitarian crises that are going on, and we like rank still in who's been killed in Gaza. We still rank the lowest. Yet everyone's posting and articles and everything. Everyone's up in arms. Why? Because it's all about Israel. In the end, it's all the nations. That's what it says. The nations will rise. This is the prophets. Nations will rise for this ultimate battle all over Israel. It's all going to be about Israel. And that's exactly what's happening right now. That everyone knows it's all about Israel. Okay, this tiny little sliver of land, but where the Jews learned their Torah. That's how we started. The Jews, do their Jew thing. Yeah. So the anyway. But let me share with you a new subject, that's the same subject, but a new detail. Something really interesting happened in the calendar. You know, because we have a Hebrew calendar and then there's the Gregorian calendar, so they do line up in weird ways sometimes. And one of those weird lineups is our lowest point of the calendar, which we're in the middle of right now. These are called the 3 weeks. The 3 weeks are the lowest part of the Jewish calendar. They begin with a fast day on the lowest part of Jewish history, the day we sinned at the golden calf, and Moses broke the tablets on that day. Yeah, that was on the day of the 17th of Tammuz. I have no more room, but the 17th of Tammuz was that day. We just fasted on it last week. Okay, it's the 17th of Tammuz, our lowest day in history, the day we sinned at the golden calf. Okay, it's worse than even Tisha B'Av, because Tisha B'Av was the results. The Tisha B'Av is the end of the 3 weeks. That's the destruction of the temple. Both first and second temple were destroyed on that day. Many other calamities were on that day. But the three, and also don't forget, you're not allowed to fly during the 9 days. Okay, you're allowed to fly towards Israel, but not away from Israel. And those days are coming up. When's 9 days start? Anyone know? Anyway, what it says about those 9 days is that those 9 days are you're not allowed to put yourself in any danger whatsoever during those 9 days. So people who normally swim don't swim. People, I'm not talking about a swimming pool or something. There it's more of a bathing issue. But if someone does swimming for sport, then it's fine. It's a very interesting time, but you don't put yourself in any risk whatsoever. They do let you fly here, though. The rabbis do allow flights to Israel. Listen, guys, 17th of Tammuz, okay? The fast day, the lowest point of Jewish history when we sinned at the golden calf, coincided with the 4th of July, which it does sometimes. It coincides with America's highest day. And when America hits its highest day, we hit our lowest day, which makes sense because the Western civilization, the top of Western civ today, which is America, is called Esav. Western civ is always called Esav, and Esav's always versus who? Jacob. It's always Jacob and Esav. They're always the ones that are fighting. So remember, Rebecca was pregnant with twins. She didn't know they were twins, and they were like fighting in there. She was like, "What's going on with me?" She would like walk by an idolatrous like discotheque, and like one of them would be like trying to get out, and then she'd walk by a place of God worship, and the other one would be trying to get out, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, I got a schizo baby!" And so, but she got good news later. She went to a prophet and said like, "What's up?" And he's like, "Lady, you got 2 kids in there. One's crazy, the other one's cool." And she's like, "Oh, that really makes me feel better." You know? Somehow that was a comfort. Anyway, but he says, when one will be up in civilization, the other will be down. When the other one's down, the other one will be up. And you look, Israel was up versus Esav with our first 2 temple periods. Then it totally went to Esav, that's Rome, an extension, then modern Europe, and then America, and all Western countries. Then they've been up, and we've been totally down. But all of a sudden we find the Tchelis in the color. Who's got some royal blue thread on them? Anyone got the thread? We've now found the thread, and we've got the right thread. We've now found the actual color and how to dye it properly to get the royal. It's not called royal for nothing. It's talking about royalty, who's on top. And now we found it. And not only that, it was predicted hundreds of years ago by Rabbi Nachman of Breslov the year they'd find it, and that is the year they found it. Okay? And there's all kinds of cool more stuff. I could teach you this class for like 5 hours, but let's just keep going. So the 17th of Tammuz, our lowest day, hits 4th of July, the top of Esav's days, the best day in Esav's history. Now, it hits once in a while. Yeah, the United States of Esav gets 4th of July and 17th. It hits every like 40 years, okay? It hits sometimes. But what happened? One time in all of America's history did it flip. And they hit their lowest day on the 4th of July. And we hit a high day on the 17th of Tammuz. How could we have a high day? It's a fast day. It's our lowest day. How could it be high? Answer, it hit on Shabbos. And when the 17th of Tammuz hits the Shabbos, we do not fast, we party, like every Shabbos. Just like we're in the 3 weeks now, but tomorrow night we're going to party. And then the last night, right before Tisha B'Av, the lowest fast day, the deepest, darkest day of Jewish history, we're going to party on Shabbos and then go into Shabbos. So this day, the 17th of Tammuz, our lowest day, hit the 4th of July once in all of U.S. history. It's only happened 7 times. It only will happen 7 times in the entire world history. Entire world, from the creation of the Big Bang, all the way till The edge of 6,000, it will only have hit 7 times. Okay? So it'll hit 7 times. Two of those times will be during the time of American history. One already happened. What happened? 4th of July flipped to their lowest day. It was during the Gettysburg Battle. That day was called the high water mark because so many people were killed that they had to call a truce just to bury their dead. It was America's lowest day in their history, a day dedicated only for the burial of fallen soldiers. And we, all over the globe, okay, we didn't know that was happening. There was no internet then. Jews all over the globe on the 17th of Tammuz were partying on that one day. Well, you can refer to your Jewish calendars and note that next year, Tafshin Ayin Hey will be a 4th of July hitting the 17th of Tammuz on Shabbos. And that is the only other time it will happen in history. It's happened once in U.S. history, a couple hundred years ago. It's going to happen again this coming year. Okay? Now that is kind of trivia. It's kind of out there. It's kind of random, but who knows? Maybe it's an indicator. Maybe it's an indicator. Maybe. I don't know. But it's pretty crazy, nevertheless, because it did hit once, and when it hit, it was the worst day for the United States of Esav and the best day for Yaakov. All I can say is just this is kind of the last chance to come here with what you own, okay? Because otherwise you're going to be jet skiing from Cyprus with whatever you're wearing at the time. So just that there's a chance now that we can actually listen to our rabbis and recognize that they didn't give us those drought years and all this. They didn't give it to us for nothing. The reason they gave that to us, because it's random information. We don't need that information unless, of course, they're telling us to prepare ourselves. They're telling us to be ready. They're telling us that it's not by coincidence we're in the land now, but we're actually supposed to live in the land, and we're supposed to be ready for this stuff. Okay? Now, I know everyone has parents, and they have their own pressures and stuff, but chances are your parents are, no offense to your parents, a little out to lunch about these kinds of things. Okay? They are Westerners, living Western stuff. They happen to be born Jewish, but they're living Western worldview. Okay, we're Jews. We don't have Western worldview. We have been hosted by Western worldview. We don't have Western worldview. We live amongst Jews who have a Jewish worldview. Our Jewish worldview comes from our sages who have taught us how to decipher the Torah and how to understand the world we live in so that we're ready at all times to be this eternal nation who, as promised in Deuteronomy, will be redeemed at the end of days, and all of history will finally make sense. So I think for all of us, it's a bit of a wake-up call. We all got to wake up a little bit, and like as much as we love our parents, sometimes you got to do tough love. Sometimes you got to do tough love. And tough love, what is tough love? Tough love is I love you so much that I'm not going to listen to you because I don't want to hurt you. And you may not understand this right now, but this is what's got to be because I'm a Jewish person. I'm a Jew. And Judaism is what informs my life. And I love you very much, and I'll honor you to the end. But in the end, I've got to answer to myself. I'm a Jewish person. And this is the edge of history. I want to be in the right place at the right time. And it doesn't mean you can't go visit and get closure and give hugs and all that and eat all the delicious delicacies of your mother's cooking, may it be kosher. But these are really amazing times we're in, and it's not by coincidence you're listening to this class. It's not by coincidence you've been hearing any classes you've been hearing. It's not by coincidence you're in Israel right now, and it's certainly not by coincidence that right behind me is the Temple Mount, and the first time in thousands of years that you could hear all this information on the other edge of history for the grand finale coming your way. Thank you very much.